These people are the lowest form of life, I'm telling you. The lowest. They are the lowest form of humanity.
Really hurts my feelings. Donald Trump repeatedly going after the press, members of the press, and anyone working in the media during his campaign, and that does delight some of his supporters. He does it in intensely personal ways. Now, this weekend, he is ratcheting up the attacks. He suggested that his real opponent wasn't Hillary Clinton, it is the press, and he threatened to revoke their credentials, including from the New York Times, after they ran a story characterizing him as sullen and erratic.
I'm not running against crooked Hillary Clinton. I'm running against the crooked media. That's what I'm running against. Sure. These are the most dishonest people. The good news is I put down failing at New York Times. The newspaper's going to hell. So I think maybe what we'll do, maybe we'll start thinking about taking their press credentials away from them. You know? Maybe we'll do that. I think so.
Then Trump went on to tweet on Sunday, quote, "It's not freedom of the press when newspapers and others are allowed to say and write whatever they want, even if it's completely false." And then he said, "If the disgusting and corrupt media covered me honestly and didn't put false meaning into the words I say, I would be beating Hillary by 20%. Joining me now, conservative talk radio host and MSNBC contributor Charlie Sykes, who was part of the Never Trump movement and who has said this weekend that conservative hosts, including himself, quote, created this monster by demonizing the mainstream media for 2 decades. And MSNBC political analyst Joan Walsh, also, of course, national affairs correspondent for The Nation. I'm excited to talk to both of you about this, Charlie. I'll start with you. What did you mean that you fed us up to this moment?
Well, you know, I think in part, and I have a longer analysis of this, but you know, over the years, conservative talk show hosts, and I'm certainly one of them, we have done a remarkable job of attacking and challenging the mainstream media, but perhaps what we did was also then to destroy any sense of a standard. Who are the referees? Where do you go to basically say, you know, this is the truth? Now, you have Donald Trump comes along, and the man, you know, says things that are demonstrably untrue on a regular basis, but you know, my experience has been, look, we live in an era where every drunk at the end of the bar has a Twitter account, has an email account, and maybe has a blog. And when you try to point out, okay, this is not true, this is a lie, and then you cite the Washington Post or the New York Times, their response, that's the mainstream media. So we've done such a good job of discrediting them that there's almost there's no place to go to be able to fact check. Now, having said that, the mainstream media does have some, has some responsibility here. For years and years and years, crying wolf, accusing every single Republican of being a racist. Now you have the real thing come along, and we're kind of at a loss.
Joan?
Well, I really appreciate what Charlie has had to say about this. I think it's really honest. It's really brave. I do think, you know, there's an old Republican tendency to criticize the media, to blame the media. It goes back to when the civil rights movement and the Vietnam War, anti-war movement really exploded, and there was a perception that reporters were taking the side of the protesters. And, you know, certainly when it comes to the civil rights movement, there was a reason to be on the side of the protesters. So there's been this antagonism. But, you know, I'm a Hillary Clinton supporter. We have plenty of complaints with the New York Times, a newspaper I overall love. But we do have a problem that we live in parallel universes. And, you know, Fox News, I think, contributed to this even more than, you know, conservative talk radio, although it played a role. And we are in this very tough place where people do come to these debates with their own facts. And it's going to make it very hard for us to come together post-Trump. And figure out how to
you're both talking about the key role of facts, which is one of the justifications for a press. It's not just a place for extra talk. And Charlie, I wonder if there's a distinction here between the well-founded concern that's been articulated by so many conservatives that part of the media seems rooted in living in a liberal lifestyle in the coast with certain ideas, premises about tolerance, about social issues that are really rooted there, whether they're strongly held or not, they're rooted as a premise or automatic. And that seems different, right, than saying that the facts that are put out by these institutions can't be trusted.
Well, a lot of conservatives were alienated by that. You know, you would not have seen a conservative alternative media if they felt that they were being treated with respect. There was a certain amount of contempt. There was a certain amount of dismissal of conservative ideas. And as a result, you know, the conservative alternative media, and I'm part of that, grew up. And I was very proud of that. And I assumed that what we were doing was informing people, making people smart, giving people factual information, telling them the other side of the story. And unfortunately, what's happened is it has morphed into this alternative reality where, as Joan says, we live in these different silos. And having discredited the mainstream media, now what do we have? We have, you know, the InfoWars, we have the Breitbarts, we have the Drudges, in which, you know, information is passed, things that you know, bear no resemblance to reality whatsoever. So, you know, I'm in the position of having on a regular basis to basically say, look, that information's not valid, that's not true, that's not accurate. And yet we have so effectively conditioned many of our listeners not to pay any attention to something outside that bubble, outside that silo, that now we have this Donald Trump phenomenon. And what you're seeing is Donald Trump understanding that he needs to delegitimize the press itself, not just criticize bias. He needs to delegitimize any of those media stories that are going to come out about him, because there's a lot still to come.
Right, and Joan, that's the difference. There's nothing new about Republicans running against the press, or as you said, any candidate. There is a difference, though, in someone who is seeking to control the federal government, saying, I'm going to use my power to seek retribution on coverage I don't like.
Right, I'm going to exclude reporters. I'm going to work on the libel laws to make them tougher or looser.
Open them up.
Open them up so that more people like him can sue. No, it's a really belligerent, intimidating kind of thing. And then let's just talk about our own Katie Tur, who was so, you know, threatened at a Trump rally. The Secret Service walked her to her car. There's just a level of ginning up antagonism and hatred of the press that we really haven't seen.
Right, and it is a feature. I've been to Trump rallies, as you both know, and have probably been to them as well. It's a feature of these rallies to get people excited about the press and the protesters before anything even happens. And the notion that this is a private event controlled by Mr. Trump. He will boot people as he sees fit. Again, that's true. He has that right as a private individual. It would be different. He wouldn't have that right if he was convening a federal government space. Charlie Sykes and Joan Walsh, thank you both so much. That is all in for this evening.